Okay, so on today's episode of the CryptoCast podcast, I'm joined by Paouky, who is a community, I guess I want to say community leader in Grin. Is that like the accurate way of describing it?
I would like to say contributor, but yeah.
So how long have you been involved with Grin, Paouky?
So I think I found out about Grin in March 18, like almost a year before it was launched. It was back then it felt like sort of Bitcoin 2.0, because with all the ICOs, the crazy, companies and revenue and models and get rich quick schemes. Like Green was extremely unique in the space back then, which now you see a bit with all the fair launches and stuff with in DeFi. It's a bit of a movement, but back then it was really special. Like you just had a forum, and that's where everything happened. Like no one had special privileges. The founders were anonymous, and it was you. Once you found out about Grin back then, like it's hard not to get sucked up into it. It was very fun.
And I vaguely recall that Grin was actually really profitable to mine. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of money put into Grin mining at the beginning, and it was profitable. Um, yeah, I'm not a big miner guy, but the profits were definitely high, and now Grin mining is sort of a niche.
Yeah, it sounds kind of similar, probably like to Dogecoin and stuff like that. Well, I mean, like, well, not necessarily, but you know what I mean. Like, kind of how the mining's just kind of dropped off for the. Well, it's not as let's just say it's not as mainstream because of course everyone's always chasing the profit. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, where does the nickname come from, Paouky?
Huh. You know, it has absolutely no meaning at all. I think I was looking for some kind of a game nickname back in 2012 or something, and I wanted just Paouky sounded cool. And Paouky with a W was taken, so I picked a Paouky. That's it. It's very
Yeah, that's
boring.
yeah, pretty straightforward. Sounds like a lot of these nicknames. Yeah. And so I know that you were recently so you were elected to write the documentation for Grin or something like that.
Yeah, so Grin development is voluntary like Bitcoin, but we do have a fund who's funded by donations. Like we got a few 50 Bitcoin donations from like Coinbases mined in 2010, which weren't moved, which is really cool. Like they weren't moved since 2010, and some other people and companies donated. And we found a few full-time developers with it, which they're part of the core team. Um, and I was basically the first one who asked for and got funding from this fund. Like it was a community decision, basically. Everybody has an option to put an opinion and whatever. And yeah, I was the first non-developer to get this funding. And basically what I do, the whole documentation for the project is such a mess. Like you have extremely outdated GitHub markdown files, which people have written all over the place, and everybody can edit them. And like some are really old, some are just not relevant, and a lot of the information is in the forums or in Medium articles. And like when you don't have a company, and nobody wants to do the dirty work to organize this stuff. It just becomes a big mess. So I just I took up the task to organize it and make it real, and yeah, it was challenging to say the least.
Yeah, that sounds pretty similar because when I'm writing articles for Coin Bureau, I also like I find myself skimming through all these different sources because, like you said, even for a lot of the larger projects, I think you'd be surprised. Like on their GitHub, Medium, whatever, it's just spread out everywhere. A lot of it is outdated, not updated. Yeah, so I imagine it's probably a hell of a task. Like, have you already started, or like how long have you been in this position for, and is there like a limit? Like, I'm very curious about these community funding. Like, are there limits kind of like on terms, or is it like 1 year contract, or how does it work?
it is to ask for like a 3 months funding period where you say what your goals are, what you're going to do, and you ask for funding for the period of 3 months. And that's what I asked for. Usually they just pay you in advance, and you post like an update every 2 weeks on the forums. For me personally, because I haven't contributed much in the past to Grin, like I was always a community member, but I wasn't like somebody with proven work. We agreed that I would be paid like on a month-to-month basis. So I've been working last month on it, which I was paid for, and then they see that I'm working and I do a good job, and like there's another small discussion. Okay, do we fund him for the month of September? Yeah, okay. So they send me the funds for September, and basically like it took me 2 months and I'm done. Right? I asked for 3 months, but it took me less, and so I'm pretty much finished. So this
Nice.
week is my last week.
So what's next for you then as a Grin community? Like, do you have any other things in mind? Like what other? I'm actually really curious. Like, what other things do you see? Maybe not even necessarily just in Grin, but in other like cryptocurrency communities. Because I guess you could say that's kind of like your focus, right? Like, what are the differences you see, if any, between like Grin community and others, whether it's in terms of funding or whatever, if you've seen any of that.
Yeah, so I'm really hopeful for Grin, although many people have lost hope because it's really hard to stay a part of a community that had so much hype a year and a half ago and just slowly dwindled down, the expectations not met, and price, like, I mean, so many people lost a shit ton of money investing in Grin, and it just eats away at the community. And actually, another interesting factor is I don't like those funds. I actually hate the Grin donation fund, even though I'm funded by it, right? Because you see people on the forums, like something needs to be done, okay? For example, like very recently, someone noted that the information in CoinGecko about Grin had to be updated. So now you don't have a company, you don't have anyone in charge. Like seriously, anybody could just contact CoinGecko and tell them to update this, right? But when you have a fund, everybody starts, instead of doing the work themselves, they just suggest, okay, do we fund someone to do community tasks? Do we fund someone to do this? They always want to fund people and they don't feel the responsibility themselves, right? This is why I'm a big believer in that open source projects, you can't have people with special status. And even if it's not a company or something official, even just funding people from a donation-based fund is just bad, because every community responsibility is really diminished. And yeah, this is like, we've never seen any project like this in crypto since maybe Bitcoin. But now all these DeFi projects, I'm actually quite optimistic about some of them because they don't have that. Like you can see some projects where everybody is completely equal, and when you do something, like when something needs to be done, you feel as if it's your responsibility, just like anybody else. And I think this is key, and it's also a key factor in Grin's sort of, I wouldn't say demise, but slow degrading.
Well, so in that case, what's your future outlook like for Grin, and is there anything that you see that could potentially, I don't know, like maintain or maybe even bring the cryptocurrency back up, kind of like and not necessarily in terms of price, but just in terms of awareness? Like, is there something? Do you see any way out? I guess. Do you see a way to kind of reignite the spark?
That's a really good question. Everybody in the Grin community is asking ourselves this question. Well, we hope. We all love this project. This project has a great story, a great potential, which is really important, the story. And we're hopeful, But, I don't know. It's a very depressing time for Grin. You can hear it on my voice. It sucks.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, I think, because you had brought up DeFi, like I think that would be really interesting. I mean, I know a lot of DeFi is already kind of like decentralized, whatever, and all this stuff, and you don't need any KYC. But I wonder if, like, and that's kind of the tricky thing is, like you said, some of these projects are good, some of them are bad. It would be really cool. I mean, I don't know what it would look like, but it would be really cool to see kind of like a privacy cryptocurrency oriented kind of project where you have like, well, because of course, we had that like discussion with like Monero and Pivx and all these things. And it would be really interesting, I guess, if you could see a DeFi project that was focused around privacy coins. And now I don't know how that would work or if it would even work, but I think that there's something really, really cool you could do there because privacy, it's a very fascinating topic because some people say that no one cares, other people say that everyone cares, and I think it really just comes down to like everyone has a kind of like a different tolerance of how much their privacy is taken away, and I think a lot of people are just unaware because in the same way with the community interaction, I think a lot of people they don't the reason why these communities fizzle out is because they just end up having better things to do, and when the hype has died down, people move on to other things or to DeFi or whatever. And yeah, I guess that you just kind of need to have some sort of continual, development and innovation, and maybe there's something in there for DeFi. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, like we have, do you know Beam, the privacy coin?
Actually, I don't know.
So, like Beam is basically the corporate Mimblewimble coin, right? Grin is organically developed anonymous founders and developers Mimblewimble coin, Mimblewimble protocol based privacy coin, and Beam is basically like it developed at the same time, but actually in Israel, right? It has a Israeli company that gets developer tax from the mining, and they do like fancy marketing, and they have even really nice UX, UI. They're a company. They're a for-profit company with investors and stuff. And actually, they just announced, they just shifted their entire roadmap to like being DeFi-centric, just like the trend goes right now. They're trying to shift into DeFi to, to get all this free hype and bridge into Ethereum. I don't think that's where the future is at. If there's a good privacy solution for currently what is DeFi or for the mainstream crypto audience, it would probably have to be like natively on top of Ethereum. I'm not sure there's like Tornado Cash. I'm not sure how that actually works. I didn't look into it, but that's probably where it will come from. And yeah, let's get back to your question. I forgot what your question was.
Yeah. No, I guess. Well, I mean, I think you kind of answered it there, and I actually had another one kind of following up from that. So, what, like, do you hold? I'm guessing you hold. Like, do you hold some Grin? Do you hold cryptocurrency? Like, what's your view, kind of, on like the whole cryptocurrency space? Like, are you bullish? Are you skeptical? Like, what do you think? What do you hold, and what do you think?
Yeah, so I hold Grin. Luckily, I didn't buy early on because, Grin has a linear emission, which is also a big part why its price keeps coming down and the enthusiasm going down. Because, on the first year, it has 100% inflation. On the second year, 50% inflation, right? Because every Grin block, every minute produces 60 Grins. So it's like 1 Grin per second forever. It's like very, very unique in the crypto space. It's not aimed at enriching early users at all, which is also kind of hopeful because maybe when inflation goes down, like price can sort of recover. But yeah, I hold I would say quite a lot of Grin for my portfolio, and I'm still hopeful for that. I do hold. It's funny because you always have these crypto market theories, right? You think this is the top, this is not. Like I know you probably can share your experience on this as well, but you might have like a long-standing theory about crypto markets and where the price is headed and stuff, but when the real time comes, you just don't follow it. Like you just forget your ultimate plan, you know, your multi-year plan, and just abandon it. And you know, you can say FOMO in, right? But I don't think it's the right word. Anyway, I always thought that my theory from like a few years back is that this bear cycle is going to be much longer than the previous one, and I never thought we would see the all-time highs before the halving, before the Bitcoin halving, or immediately after. Like my theory is 21, 22, 23, like completely longer bear market, right? And that was my theory. I have even tweets like from 2 years ago saying that you know, are you ready to have Bitcoin go sideways for months in mid 2020? Like I was pretty spot on, right? But the relation with how you trade to what you're like, to being like, the difference between being right and making money, you know how they say, is just so big. So yeah, I hold crypto, and my trading has been very much semi-successful. Maybe you can share your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it's interesting when I mentioned CryptoMood's products, you were kind of like interested, and I don't know if that's partially because in the back of your mind you're like, damn it, like, you know, I could use something like this to improve my trading.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so I don't know. I guess we'll share my thoughts. Geez, I mean, I think I actually do think that we're going to be trading. I guess you just didn't anticipate that we would be trading sideways at such a high price, if that makes any sense. But I think
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I think that that's where we're kind of sitting, and I think that it's really, you know, at the end of the day, and I think you can kind of make a really simple argument. Cryptocurrency is a very volatile. Well, it's volatile because people don't really know how to feel about it. I mean, they don't know what the value is. It's kind of like, you know, the .com bubble, and the thing is, you know, was there a .com bubble? Yes. Will there be cryptocurrency bubbles? Definitely. But the thing is that over time, people will come and see that, you know, that these, you know, these things are incredibly valuable, and I definitely think that DeFi is definitely one of those, you know, elements that comes out of it. But I think that we are going to be trading sideways for a while because, again, it's such a risky asset. I think that large institutions are going to stay away from it, when right now is kind of like, geez, like now's the time to kind of be careful with your investments and not, you know, throw them in. And really, the only people that are throwing their investments in are people that are really high risk, like I am. And I have, I mean, let me put it this way: like, you can think that maybe 10 or 20% of people in the crypto space that are heavily invested, like they can put up with these big moves, but most people can't. So I think that just adds to the volatility, that when the price starts to fall a little bit, they start to freak out, and then you see, you know, much larger, you know, swings to the downside as a consequence, because people are basically, you know, they way too overextended, because generally I think the person that's invested in crypto is way more like risk, way more into risk, but they don't have like the stomach for it. So when the price drops, you know, 10-20%, they freak out. But I had a nice trade with Uniswap. I think I almost tripled in investment. It was pretty small. It wasn't anything substantial, but like, I think that was the most successful like short-term trade I've ever had. And it's like, I mean, to kind of also like repeat what you said, I guess I don't necessarily have like a strategy. I'm just kind of like holding, but at the same time, you know, I had like, I think my Chainlink investment went up like 10 times, and now it's, you know, it's only up like maybe 3 or 4 times. And I'm thinking like, shit, you know, like, did I just miss? Because I was planning, I'm going to wait till the price has gone up, and then it really went up, and it's like in my mind I was still waiting, you know, but then the price went back down, and I'm like, shit, I think I just missed the peak, you know. But you know, I don't know, you never know. And I mean, good on you for not FOMOing into Grin too early. But that being said, like, I'm actually really curious, like, what's your outlook then, like, you know, for the space, not necessarily in terms of investing, but do you think like crypto, well, I guess you already said that, you know, I guess you said that, you know, you're not entirely sure, or I don't know, like, are you generally, like, I'm assuming you're bullish, because otherwise you wouldn't be in the space, right?
Yeah, I'm bullish. I'm bullish. contrary, like what I think my view is a bit different from the rest of the crypto space is I'm very bullish for the next few years, right? That also depends on macro and stuff like that. But I'm very bullish on the next few years. Regarding 10 plus years, I'm not so sure. I talked about it in the last episode about privacy, cryptocurrencies. I do think that in 5, 10, 15 years, crypto is going to become a niche, right? I mentioned that article about killer concessions, right? Once the companies and the governments and organizations make the killer concessions that makes crypto irrelevant besides censorship resistance, that's when I think crypto goes back into niche territory. And that's where my view differs. But yeah, for the medium term, I'm definitely bullish. And most of my net worth is in various crypto projects right now. Actually, I just you could say I don't like mentioning it. Okay, I just bought really interesting project which maybe you are not familiar with. It's not a project. It's like legacy sort of like a legacy symbol for Ethereum, which I hope it will become. It's hard to explain for me, especially in English, but there's this thing called CryptoPunks and autoglyphs, right? It's like the first NFT art ERC721 thing on Ethereum. It's just simple avatars and hex unicodes directly on the blockchain, which like sounds extremely stupid. Like why would anybody pay for that? But I would pay for that. I think it's awesome that you like if Ethereum becomes actual historical phenomenon, it's like these things, they sort of have a historical value, right? A legacy value. The first non-fungible asset ever issued on Ethereum. I don't know. I just but I regress. I just wanted to share. I never shared it with anyone. I just like if anybody wants to check out CryptoPunks and autoglyphs, I think it's very cool. But I wanted to touch about what you said earlier. I think the crypto markets are very I don't think I know they are very retail oriented, especially all these smaller projects in DeFi, right? Very retail oriented, and the market sentiment analysis, right? What you guys do, I think it's extremely relevant for today's crypto markets, which is very unique. Like, what other markets in the world can you say that the majority of the sentiment and the majority of investment can be like figured out from various corners of the internet? I think it's very interesting. What is possible in that regard?
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it's I mean, we like to think that it's pretty useful, and I mean, I think you're right. You know, they keep saying that. They also keep saying that you know, cryptocurrency is not that correlated with regular assets. But I think, you know, as soon as you read that there's no more stimulus checks in the U.S., or as soon as you read that the stocks have started going down, then what do you see? You go to CoinMarketCap, go into CoinGecko, and all the coins are starting to go down.
Sorry, what?
Oh, sorry. No, I said like, you know, they say the market isn't correlated, and then you go, you know, with crypto and regular markets, and you go into and you go in, and you're like, what the hell? Like, it's going down, maybe even more aggressively than regular markets. So it's quite interesting. But in any case, yeah, man.
You know, right? Do you remember there was, I think, sometime in 2018 where Bitcoin was going sideways for a few months on $6,000, right? Do you remember that? And like it immediately one day dropped to like 3,000, like the ultimate bottom. Do you remember that time?
I think I do, yeah.
So yeah, like if I had some sort of sentiment analysis, that would be cool, because I remember back then I think that was my biggest success in crypto trading. Back then, I wanted to figure out what way it will go. I believed the bear market is not over, but I wanted to see what retail thinks to counter trade, right? So I went into XMR Trader, the subreddit XMR Trader, and I just started reading all the posts to figure out what is the retail sentiment, what everybody feels, and I just saw extreme positivity in the subreddit, right? Bitcoin has been going sideways for a few months. Like it almost felt like, okay, everything is going to pump soon. Like that's what everybody was saying. And like immediately when I saw that sentiment over there, I just bought like a few put options on Deribit, which worked out very well for me. Yeah, just it was fun.
That's pretty good, man. Yeah, I mean, I'd keep kicking myself too because I'm thinking back, like, man, like I think at the time I had money at least to buy, a couple of Bitcoins. I think that would have been a good investment, and I don't know. I guess we'll kind of have to wait and see. I think in the words of some wise investors, you can never know for sure. Like that was a sick trade, and then sounds like since then you've had difficulty. And for me, it's like. I have no idea what I'm doing. You trying to use the tools here to the best of my ability, and they help and they do work. But I think it's a psychological battle more than it is like a numbers one.
Yeah, I think it's not like, to be honest, it's not worth your mental effort and health to trade the crypto markets. It's just better to hold. Like it's a timeless truth.
Yeah, man, I agree completely. So on that note, did you have any, because we're nearing up on half an hour here, do you have any closing thoughts you wanted to leave? I don't know, either about Grin or about cryptocurrency or kind of like any prediction or big, price prediction, Bitcoin price prediction?
Huh. Well. No, I don't have any. I don't want to leave with any price predictions, but I do encourage people to make price predictions and just leave them in a box somewhere in your just leave them in a box somewhere in your apartment and look at it in 3 years. It's always very interesting and sobering to figure out how much you're wrong, right? Because we often forget what were our original opinions, not about just price, but everything in life. Like if you try to remember what are your opinions 5 years ago, it's likely to be one of two things. Either you misremember entirely what your opinions were, and you think they were entirely different than what they actually were, or you absolutely don't remember them. So I think it's very effective to just make a prediction and see how much you're wrong a few years from now. And because you can't have ego if you're trying to trade, you can't have ego. You need to crush it as early as possible. That's my closing thoughts.
That's sick, man. No, that's awesome. I think that's the best closing I've had so far on the podcast.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Anyway, man, Paouky, thanks so much for taking the time to talk today, man. Like, it was seriously a pleasure. And thanks again for attending the event from last week. Like, I really loved hearing what you had to say, and it was a great event, and I think you were a big part of that. So thanks so much again for that.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Really, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man. We'll speak again soon, eh?
Yeah, sure.
Take care, buddy.
Take care.
Bye-bye.